The sky was brushed with soft morning gold, casting a warm hue over the sleepy neighborhood. Birds chirped quietly from the maple trees, their melodies weaving through the gentle breeze. Dew still clung to the grass, glistening like tiny diamonds in the early light. It was the kind of morning that felt like a promise, peaceful, untouched, almost sacred. Inside a modest white house with blue shutters, the Thomas family was starting their day. The kettle whistled faintly in the kitchen. A dog-eared board book lay open on the coffee table, next to a sippy cup half full of apple juice. And in the front yard, barely steady on his feet, 18-month-old Noah toddled across the lawn. Noah was a bundle of sunshine, all soft cheeks, wide eyes, and messy chestnut curls. He wore his favorite footy pajamas covered in little cartoon bears, though one foot was already slipping out as he explored the grass. His tiny hands grasped a plastic toy truck, dragging it behind him with fascination as it bumped along the uneven ground. His mother, Emily, had only stepped inside for a minute. The front door was open, the screen door shut, and she kept her eyes on him through the window while grabbing his favorite blanket and a bottle. Their house was at the edge of a quiet country road where barely a car passed before noon. Still, she watched him the way a mother does, with a heart always half full of wonder and half full of worry. Noah giggled as a butterfly danced past his nose, then lost interest and plopped down into the grass with the kind of soft thud only a baby can make. He looked up at the world like it was brand new. And for him it was. Then something shifted. It was subtle at first, a distant, scraping sound, like nails on pavement. Noah tilted his head, eyes narrowing, trying to locate it. Another shuffle. A grunt. Something was approaching. Around the bend in the road, barely visible behind a hedgerow, a shape stumbled into view. Large, ragged, moving unevenly. The morning sun lit it from behind, making it hard to see clearly, but it was moving closer, step by agonizing step. It was a dog, or rather what was left of one. A German shepherd, once proud and powerful, now gaunt and trembling. Its fur was matted with dirt and dried blood. One of its hind legs dragged slightly behind the others. Its ribs pressed against its skin like a xylophone. The dog's tongue lolled out, cracked and dry. Every breath it took seemed to cost something. It didn't bark. It didn't growl. It barely seemed aware of where it was going. It only knew it had to keep going. For something. For someone. Maybe even just for hope. Noah didn't move at first. He sat frozen in the grass, his toy forgotten beside him. His round eyes locked onto the figure. And then, as if sensing something invisible, the dog looked up, and their eyes met. The moment held. There was no fear in Noah. No flinch or scream. Just curiosity. Pure and simple. He tilted his head again, the same way the dog had moments before. Then, slowly he stood up, wobbling for balance. The German shepherd took one more step. And collapsed. Right there, in front of the Thomas family yard, mere feet from where Noah stood, the dog's legs gave out, its body thudding against the earth like a sack of stones. It didn't move again. Its eyes fluttered, still half open. Its breathing was shallow. It looked more like a discarded thing than a living creature. From the kitchen window, Emily caught a blur of movement, her son crouching again near the edge of the lawn. At first she smiled. Then her eyes darted to the road, and her heart stopped. She flung the door open so hard it banged against the wall. Noah! But Noah didn't turn. He was focused on something far more important. The baby toddled closer, small feet brushing the grass. The dog's body gave off a faint smell, blood, sweat, fear. But Noah didn't notice. He kneeled down beside the animal, his fingers curling around the dog's paw, sticky with breakfast jam. "Paw," he mumbled, in that toddler voice only parents can fully understand. "Doggy." The shepherd didn't move. But one eyelid fluttered. A single, raspy exhale slipped from its nose. Noah sat down, plopped into the dirt like it was the most natural thing in the world. He leaned forward and gently, almost reverently, laid his head against the dog's side. And there he stayed. By the time Emily reached them, her throat tight and her eyes wide with panic, the image before her stopped her in her tracks. Her baby boy, resting against a dying animal, both of them completely still, completely quiet. She felt her knees weaken. Oh my God! She dropped beside them, hands already reaching to pull Noah away, to call for help, to make sense of what was happening, but she hesitated. Because the dog moved. Not much, but enough. Its tail gave the faintest thump against the grass. Not fear. Not pain. Something else. Something like gratitude. Emily swallowed hard, blinking away tears she hadn't realized were forming. She finally scooped Noah into her arms and held him close. It's okay, sweetheart. Mommy's here. You're okay. But even as she pulled him back, Noah reached out, one chubby hand extended toward the dog. He didn't want to leave it. And Emily, looking down at the crumpled body in front of their home, realized something she couldn't explain. This wasn't just a stray. It wasn't just a coincidence. Something had brought that dog here. Something had brought it to them. To him. To Noah. The old flannel blanket Emily had draped around the dog was already soaking through. She crouched beside the German Shepherd, her phone pressed to her ear, voice shaking as she spoke to the emergency vet service 10 miles out of town. Yes, he's still breathing. Weak, but his eyes are open. He's bleeding from the side. I think he might have been hit or... God, I don't know. Just please hurry. She ended the call and looked down again, brushing a strand of matted fur from the dog's face. Her other arm clutched Noah, who was squirming to get closer again, reaching out his arms, soft fingers opening and closing. Noah, sweetheart, no, he's hurt. We have to let him rest. But the baby squirmed harder, grunting softly. His lip quivered. His eyes filled with tears, but not from fear. From frustration. From the aching need to be near the dog again. Emily had never seen him like this, so insistent. So connected. With a deep breath and trembling hands, she set him gently down a few feet away. Okay, hey, just be gentle, baby. Please. Noah toddled back toward the shepherd, careful even in his clumsy steps. He plopped beside the dog again, the way only a child could, without hesitation, without calculation. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just sat there. Then he reached into the pocket of his pajama pants and pulled out a soggy little biscuit from earlier that morning. It was cracked and crumb-covered, but he held it out with such innocent purpose that Emily's throat closed again. Number, he whispered. The German Shepherd didn't move, but its nose twitched. Noah inched forward and gently placed the biscuit on the dog's front paw. Emily wiped her eyes. You're breaking my heart, kiddo. The biscuit remained untouched. But Noah wasn't done. He scrambled to his feet again, a wobbly rise, using the dog's side for balance like it was a trusted piece of furniture, and tottered back toward the house. Emily followed, confused. Noah, where are you going, baby? But he was focused. Through the open screen door, he waddled inside and into the kitchen, heading for the cupboard where his things were kept. He pulled on the bottom drawer with both hands until it clattered open, revealing a pile of his toys. He rummaged through them with tiny grunts and gasps of frustration. Emily stepped inside, still watching him like he was doing something sacred. What are you? He finally pulled it out. A stuffed brown bear with one ear missing and a soft patch over its belly where he'd chewed the fur off as a teething baby. His favorite. Noah. Bear? You never. But he was already on his way back outside. The German Shepherd hadn't moved. Its breathing was growing shallower now, more labored. The blanket was turning a deeper red in places. Emily had never felt so powerless. Noah knelt down and tucked Bear under the dog's front leg, like a child tucking a sibling into bed. He gave it one soft pat. Then sat. Then waited. The dog gave a low, almost inaudible groan. And then, its head shifted. Only slightly. But enough. Its nose nudged the bear. That was when Emily lost it. She sank to her knees on the porch, hands covering her mouth. She didn't make a sound, just wept quietly as her baby boy comforted a dying creature in a way no adult could have. There was no panic in Noah. No judgment. Just instinct. Kindness. Moments passed. The wind picked up slightly, rustling the wind chimes above them into a low, metallic lullaby. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed, faint, but getting closer. And still, Noah sat there. Then the dog moved again. Its paw, weak as it was, shifted and came to rest across the stuffed bear's belly. Almost protective. Almost claiming it. Emily watched in stunned silence. And then Noah did something no one would ever forget. He leaned forward, placed a kiss on the top of the shepherd's matted head, and whispered something in his baby babble voice. It didn't make sense. Not in any language. But the dog closed its eyes. Not in pain. In peace. By the time the animal rescue team arrived, sirens now parked at the curb, 2 techs in green scrubs jogging across the lawn with a stretcher. Emily was standing, holding Noah again, rocking him gently. She's in shock, one of them said. Could be internal bleeding, possible infection, but she's still got a pulse. They lifted the shepherd carefully, sliding the stretcher beneath her broken frame. One of the techs looked over at Emily. Do you know what happened? She shook her head, wiping her face. She just showed up. Collapsed right there. My son was the one who, she looked down at Noah, who was watching the scene with wide, calm eyes. He wouldn't leave her. The tech smiled faintly. Kids always know. Somehow they just know. As they loaded the stretcher into the van, Emily followed them halfway, still barefoot, still stunned. She hesitated. Will she make it? A long pause. We've seen worse. If she makes it through the night, she's got a shot. The door closed. The van pulled away. And the Thomas front yard fell silent again. Emily looked down at her son, who rested his head on her shoulder now, finally tired, finally still. She kissed his forehead. You're a little miracle worker, you know that? He yawned. And down by the steps, left behind in the grass, blood-stained and crumpled, was Bear. The animal hospital smelled like antiseptic and worry. The walls were painted pale blue, probably chosen to calm the people who came in crying, clutching pets wrapped in towels. The lighting was soft, the air cold. But even with all its effort to feel safe, it still felt like a place of waiting. A place of maybe. Emily sat in the corner chair of the reception area, Noah curled in her lap, sound asleep now. His soft breaths were steady against her chest. His chubby fingers still held the corner of her shirt, the way he always did when he needed comfort. But she knew, he wasn't the one who needed comforting this time. She looked up as the door to the back room opened. A middle-aged woman in scrubs stepped out. Her name tag read Dr. Reese. Her expression was one that had seen both miracles and heartbreak, and never got used to either. Emily stood, careful not to jostle Noah. How is she? Dr. Reese sighed and stepped closer. She's a fighter. We stopped the bleeding. She's severely dehydrated, has an old fracture that healed wrong in one leg, and fresh trauma on her ribs, possibly from being kicked or hit. Her gums are pale, but her heart's holding. Emily's throat tightened. Will she make it? If she makes it through the next 24 hours, yes. She's not out of the woods yet. But I've seen animals survive worse with less reason to live. She had a reason, Emily whispered. Dr. Reese tilted her head. Your son? Emily nodded, eyes burning. She came right to our yard. Collapsed in front of our house like she couldn't go any farther. And Noah, he didn't even hesitate. He gave her his food, his toy, his favorite stuffed bear. The vet's lips quirked in the softest of smiles. Babies have a radar for good souls. Animals too. Emily looked down at her son, whose cheeks were rosy and peaceful. I think they saved each other. The story should have ended there. A family and a wounded dog, hearts warmed, crisis averted. But it didn't. Because Emily, running on autopilot and adrenaline, had snapped a photo. Just one, of Noah sitting beside the collapsed shepherd, Bear tucked beneath its paw. She hadn't meant to post it. But later that night, once Noah was tucked into bed and the house was quiet, she opened her Facebook app and typed a few trembling words. This beautiful soul collapsed in front of our house today. I don't know where she came from, but I do know why she stayed. My baby boy refused to leave her side. He gave her his snack, his toy, his bear. And maybe, just maybe, he gave her hope. Please say a prayer for this brave girl. She's fighting hard. She hit post and closed the app. By morning, the Post had 12,000 shares. The calls came first. Local news, a rescue group, a veterinary charity asking for permission to share the story. People from across the country started commenting, offering to donate to the shepherd's care, asking if she had a name, if she'd be adoptable, if she remembered anything. Does she wag her tail? Does she like kids? I'd fly across the country to give her a home. But the most important question was the one no one could answer yet. Would she survive? Emily took Noah to visit the clinic again that afternoon. Dr. Reese led them into the back room where the dog lay wrapped in blankets, IVs attached to her front leg, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. The moment they entered, the shepherd stirred. Her head lifted slightly. Her eyes opened. And when Noah's voice rang out, a high-pitched doggy, full of light and memory, her tail thumped. Then again. Dr. Reese blinked. She hasn't wagged her tail since we brought her in. Noah toddled to the edge of the crate and plopped down beside it, just as he had in the yard. He reached through the bars and touched the dog's paw with 2 fingers. "Hi, doggy." The shepherd pressed her nose against the bars. And everyone in the room, even the hardened vet tech in the corner, had to look away for a second. The shepherd stayed in the clinic for 3 more days. During that time, Noah visited every afternoon, and every time, she got stronger. Did more. Lifted her head higher. Watched the door until he arrived. They started calling her a shadow, because wherever Noah was, her eyes would follow. Even when he left, she'd stare at the door for minutes afterward, waiting, remembering. The news story aired by the end of the week. A grainy version of the photo of Noah and the dog played on the screen, and the anchor's voice cracked as she described the moment. A child's act of kindness, a bond beyond words, and a second chance for a soul who almost gave up. Emily stood by the couch, watching with Noah on her hip. "You're famous now," she whispered. Noah just pointed to the screen and clapped. "Doggy!" But fame wasn't what mattered. What mattered was this: the shepherd lived. And she hadn't just survived. She had chosen to stay. And though Emily hadn't said it out loud yet, she felt it in her bones. In her heartbeat. In the quiet moments when Noah sat by the door waiting for their daily visit. Shadow belonged with them. They hadn't found her. She'd found them. The crate was gone now. Shadow no longer needed to be caged or held still or monitored like a fragile artifact. Her wounds had closed, stitched and cleaned. Her coat, though still patchy in places, had regained its golden black shimmer. She walked slowly, with a slight limp in her back leg, but she walked. And more than that, she wagged her tail. Not just once in a while. Not just for Noah. Every time she saw the family, her whole body swayed with joy. She was still living at the clinic, but not for long. Dr. Reese had given her the all-clear to be released into foster care. Several homes had applied. Dozens, in fact. One family from Minnesota had even offered to charter a private jet to bring her across the country. But Shadow had already chosen her home. Every day, Emily brought Noah back to visit. And every day, it became clearer that the shepherd had imprinted on the boy in a way deeper than affection. She was bonded to him, body and soul. She followed him with her eyes. She whined when he left. She rested easier when he sat beside her. On one visit, Noah had brought a fresh bear, a replacement Emily had bought after the original was ruined by blood and weather. It was fluffy and new, but Noah didn't want it for himself. He toddled into the clinic with it in his arms and offered it to Shadow like a ceremony. "Bear," he said solemnly. Shadow took it gently from his hand and curled around it on the floor. Emily watched with tears in her eyes. It was becoming a daily routine. Dr. Reese approached Emily later that day, arms crossed, but her eyes soft. "You know she's ready to go home, right?" Emily blinked. "Being with us?" The vet nodded. "You're her person. Or more accurately, your son is. I've never seen anything like it. She's been through hell, Emily. But she came back to life because of that little boy." Emily smiled. "He's never been like this with any animal. It's like he knew she was meant for us." Dr. Reese gave a small laugh. "I think he did." That night, the Thomas household prepared to welcome its newest member. Noah's room was rearranged so there was space at the foot of his crib for a dog bed. Though Shadow would probably end up sleeping on the rug, or the couch, or, let's be honest, right next to him if she could. Emily laid out bowls, blankets, and a new collar with a silver tag that read, Shadow. On the other side, if found, please return me to Noah. When Emily clipped it around the shepherd's neck the next day, she swore the dog stood a little taller. She didn't whimper when the car pulled away from the clinic. She didn't shake or hide when they reached the house. She didn't hesitate before walking up the porch steps and through the front door. She was home. In the weeks that followed, Shadow's transformation stunned everyone. At first, she was quiet, observant, gentle, and deeply protective. She didn't bark unless there was a reason. She slept at Noah's door every night. And every morning, she was the first face he saw when he toddled out in his pajamas, arms lifted, voice squeaky, "Hi, doggy." She walked beside him through the yard like a bodyguard, her steps always matching his, even when he zigzagged or fell or burst into laughter for no reason at all. When he cried, she came running. When he napped, she curled beside him. When he held out a piece of toast or a crayon or a broken toy, she accepted it as if it were gold. They were a team. A pack of two. The story didn't fade away either. Emily's post had been shared nearly 60,000 times. News outlets kept calling. One even filmed a short documentary segment, a soft-spoken interview with Emily intercut with clips of Noah and Shadow playing together, sitting under the tree in their yard, bare between them like a sacred relic. The comments poured in. "I cry every time I see them together. This baby has more empathy than most adults. I hope that dog knows she's finally safe." People sent care packages, toys, treats, even handmade collars embroidered with hearts and paw prints. A local artist painted a portrait of Shadow and Noah, which Emily hung in the hallway across from the nursery. But for all the noise the world made around them, the house itself was quiet, peaceful. One afternoon, as Emily folded laundry in the living room, she heard the screen door creak. She turned just in time to see Noah, barefoot and beaming, stepping out onto the porch with Shadow at his side. "Noah," she called, starting to move toward the door. But then she stopped. Because he wasn't alone. Not really. Shadow's body was positioned perfectly beside him, her shoulder aligned with his, her movements cautious and slow. She paused when he paused. She turned when he did. She stopped him with her body when he veered too close to the edge of the porch. She was guiding him. Emily pressed a hand to her heart and stayed where she was, watching. Shadow turned her head back once, just once, to check on Emily as if to say, "I've got him." Emily whispered, "I know." And she let them go, just for a moment, out into the sun-drenched yard, where the wind rustled the trees and the sky stretched wide above them. A boy. A dog. A bond that needed no words. A year passed. Seasons spun like pages in a picture book, summer into autumn, autumn into frost. Snow draped the Thomas home in silence for months, then melted into mud and crocuses. Through it all, two things never changed. Noah and Shadow were inseparable. Wherever one went, the other followed. Shadow, now a picture of strength and grace, had filled out. Her coat had grown thick and glossy, her posture proud again. The scar along her ribcage was still there, a faint, pink memory, but it no longer defined her. If anything, it made her more regal. She wore it like armor. And Noah was growing too. He was nearly 3 now, still baby-faced, but taller, sturdier. His words were clearer. His thoughts deeper. He no longer stumbled when he ran, and yet, Shadow still stayed close, her pace always in sync with his. Some kids had imaginary friends. Noah had Shadow. She was his adventure partner, his secret keeper, his pillow during long car rides and his thunder buddy when storms rolled in. And to her, to Shadow, Noah was more than just a boy. He was her reason. On a quiet spring morning, just as the sky had begun to stretch into blue, Emily watched from the porch as the two of them played under the apple tree. Noah was digging in the soft earth with a plastic shovel. Shadow lay nearby, one eye open, tail thumping lazily in the grass. Emily sipped her coffee and smiled. She had taken a picture just like this nearly a year ago, only then, Shadow had looked like a ghost. A skeleton with eyes too tired to hope. Now she looked like something out of a storybook, whole, bright, content. Her phone buzzed on the porch rail beside her. Another message. Another email. Another request to share the story. People still wanted to talk about the dog who collapsed in a stranger's yard and was rescued by a toddler with jam on his hands and a stuffed bear in his pocket. Emily had said yes to a few interviews over the months. One podcast. One children's magazine. A rescue group had even turned their story into a short animation. It had gone viral again. But Emily was careful with the attention. She had learned early that while the world loved a heartwarming story, it didn't always understand that the ending wasn't the fame, it was the quiet after. The healing. The family. The life that kept going. She didn't need anyone else to tell her what she already knew. She was living with a miracle. That afternoon, Emily and Noah took Shadow for a walk through the neighborhood. It had become their daily ritual. Noah wore his red rain boots, even when the sky was clear, and Shadow walked beside the stroller with the leash looped loosely in Emily's hand. They passed familiar houses, neighbors who now waved every time they saw the trio. People still stopped sometimes, still asked about the dog from the story. Emily always nodded, always smiled. But she didn't retell it every time. Because by now, the more beautiful story was the one still unfolding. As they neared the small park at the edge of town, Emily slowed. "Noah, you want to let Shadow off for a bit?" Noah grinned. "Yes." She wanna run. Shadow perked up at the word, tail sweeping side to side. Emily unhooked the leash, and the shepherd bounded forward with an energy that still made people stop and stare. For a moment, she was a streak of black and gold across the field, free, wild, alive. Noah clapped and laughed. "Go, doggy, go." And then, as always, Shadow doubled back. She never strayed far. Not without him. She skidded to a stop in front of Noah and nudged his belly with her nose. He tumbled backward, laughing, and wrapped his arms around her neck. Emily watched, heart full and aching all at once. What were the odds? What were the chances? That a wounded dog would collapse in front of a child with no words, and be saved not by medicine alone, but by love so pure it cut through the fear? She didn't know. But she thanked God for them every single day. That night, after bath time, Emily tucked Noah into bed. His curls were still damp. Bear, now the third iteration, they had backups, lay at his side. Shadow curled in her usual place, just outside his crib, chin on her paws, ears alert. Emily ran her hand through Noah's hair. "You know you're a hero." Noah blinked sleepily. "Me? You saved her life." He considered this, eyes drifting to Shadow. "She saved me too." Emily smiled, blinking back tears. "Yeah, baby. She really did." Noah reached through the crib bars and rested his hand on Shadow's head. The dog didn't move, just closed her eyes. Months later, a letter came in the mail. It was from one of the rescue groups that had followed their story, a glossy envelope with a golden paw print sticker sealing it closed. Inside was a certificate, presented to Noah Thomas, for outstanding compassion, bravery, and love. In recognition of the day you saved a life not with words, but with kindness. You remind us all what it means to be human. Attached was a photo, one Emily hadn't seen before. A snapshot from the first week Shadow had come home. Noah asleep on the rug. Shadow curled around him. Bear tucked between them. Underneath, in handwriting, "They saved each other." Emily framed it and hung it beside the door, so that every time they walked outside into the world, a boy in red boots, a shepherd with a scar, and a bond too deep for words, they would remember. This was more than a rescue. This was fate.